Welcome to Baseball and Coffee with tonight, Tino, Matt, Doug, and Aaron. This is a joint monospod, baseball and coffee, inviting guests, all sorts of things. We are doing a roundtable. Tonight, we are going to start off with some fantasy, I assume, strategy-based questions, just some kind of discussion around strategy. For those who aren't in our league, we have a 16 team, 30 player, 15 keeper league. We declare our keepers tomorrow. Our draft starts on Friday. So a lot going on. A lot of I don't know if nerves and excitement, I think, are the right words. So Matt, how you doing?
Good.
Good, man.
Looking
Doug?
forward to it. I still need to send emails out to those who haven't set their keepers yet.
Wow.
There's
And
five teams.
so you're taking you're taking a look at everyone's keepers before Monday. Is that what's going on here?
I always look a day before.
Yeah, great.
That's good.
I won't
Doug,
make it grades, don't worry.
doing all right?
Yeah. So is quick question on that. What if someone doesn't do it? It's like you just call them up and you just go, hey, you'd probably like hold their hand and walk them through the process.
Get rolling, yeah.
Okay.
I'll publicly humiliate you.
So you
But,
have to call Bubba every year, is what you're saying.
But it really doesn't, it locks, but it doesn't roll over. There's a button that the commissioner hits.
Right.
So if somebody puts it on like a draft pick, it's still waiting there. And then, yeah, just in case somebody spaces out. But Bubba's not one of them. Bubba's not one of them. He has in.
What's up, Aaron?
Good. I just got my decaf. Got my decaf game on tonight.
Nice. Right on. So let's get started with our fantasy questions. I did say one from each person. I think if we'll just have this be a less formal discussion. So if people have more questions than one, feel free to just fire away. Aaron, let's start with you. This was kind of your brainchild a bit. Let's get started with your question first.
Sure. I'll keep it light. I just wanted to go around and everyone, if you're willing to share like one of your favorite stats and then one of your least favorite stats, I can share mine off rip. One of my favorites is max exit velocity, because I feel like it's kind of it's more descriptive maybe of in-game raw power. And so if you're trying to find a player who you think maybe has a little bit more ceiling but hasn't demonstrated it, I like those stats that maybe can tell you a little bit more about the player.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily just about one event, but so that's why I value that one. I think it's a fun one. And the one of my least favorites is in zone contact. I feel like it's overused. It's not put in context, and it annoys me. So those are mine. But yeah, favorite and least favorite stat.
Wait, Aaron, real quick on that.
Yeah.
On the max exit velocity, I could look this up myself. I hate it when people do that, where they say, "Hey, could you tell me what year this movie came out?" And I go, "You got it." But max exit velocity, is that like a one-time thing? So that's like their highest exit velocity that they had all year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it just shows their capability, or it shows that they got lucky one time.
Correct.
Maybe.
Sometimes, yes. Not all the time though. Matt, why don't you go next?
My favorite along the exit velocity one, but I'll go with 90 percentile exit velocity.
Mm-hmm.
So more of the top hits, so it's a little more the sense of balance and average there. But I do like max and seeing the raw power, but I'm really into 90%. The problem with 90% is it's hard to find. I think you sent me a picture. The new prospectus, does the guide have 90% for everybody?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, because you mainly just have to fish from people who have access to all the advanced stats. I don't think Fangraphs has 90% percentile.
Now it's my turn to ask a question. So is that like the batted balls minus the worst 10%? So like you're the best 90%, or is it like your best the best without your top 10% in there?
It is the top 10% as I understand it.
The top 10%. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Doug, what about you? If you don't have anything else, Matt.
Wait, no, I gotta say my least favorite one here.
Damn right.
I tried to get past you there. Sorry about that.
I'm not sure if you all will like this one, but I think that this came up on our text with Aaron and Tino. I don't like the Stuff Plus stuff, mainly because I don't like models that aren't explicit about this is how you come about it. So, there are the ingredients, but I want to know how exactly that's calculated. So back to my days when I was into professional football, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out the damn QB rating thing because I wanted, I had my own stats. I had no freaking idea about how to put together that for my stats. So I like the concept. I like all the ingredients, but I just want it to be so we could add it up ourselves.
Right. I think your literary question or your literary comment was very interesting with regards to Stuff Plus or Pitching Plus, I guess, because in academia you have to talk about how you do your work, right? You have to reveal what it is that you're doing. And I think that it is hard. I understand the proprietary nature of Stuff Plus, right? And why people want to keep it to themselves, but I think there is a lessening of value, at least for me, when it comes to that stuff when it's not revealed. I kind of agree with you there. Doug.
Yeah. So I'm curious with these statistics. I know that there's just like a lot of like statistic inflation, a lot of new statistics. 90th percentile. Actually, I'm just looking at my baseball prospectus right now, and I'm just realizing that they do have that. That's a good stat, I think, or at least it's better than just the singular max exit velocity on that. But there definitely seems to be a lot of statistical inflation on this. I still don't know what's the one that's on Baseball Savant with it's the for pitchers where it's like their reach when they let go of the ball.
Extension.
Yeah. I feel that that's made up and will probably go away maybe in like 8 to 10 years on that. So I don't hate or dislike or have a least favorite stat, but I do think that there's a lot of statistical inflation where people are trying to find like the right sweet spot stat on that. So I'll say that the one that I feel that gets the most play when people are talking about kind of prognosticating on what a player is going to do, and this is a new stat, is the batting average for balls in play, and people call it BAPIT, right? And that's the fact that it's got its own name also kind of maybe annoys me a little bit. But anyway, that particular stat for me is odd in the fact that you'll look at a certain player and they go, oh, their BAPIT is 340 last year, which is actually good. That's probably good for them. So it's a very subjective statistic, it seems, where like Pete Alonso will have like a BAPIT of like 260, and they go, yeah, that's pretty much his BAPIT. And then other players that have a little bit more speed or like have a little bit more ground ball average will have a higher one. So anyway, it seems like a moving target on that one. So that's not necessarily like my favorite thing, and the fact that it has its own name, that you don't actually use the acronym on that, I think pisses me off a little bit. My favorite stat is ERA. And when people talk about Blake Snell and they say, no, he sucks, look at his look at the walk rate, balls based on balls through 9. So dude did not give up any runs in the second half of the season last year. That makes him the Cy Young winner. That makes him a great pitcher. And when people discount ERA, which is a statistic in our league, and they seem to look at all these other statistics that show that he sucks, I just gotta go, hey man, the dude did what he could. I think we talked about it before that maybe some of the walks were done for a reason and not necessarily out of wildness. But the fact is that after each inning, he would walk off the mound without any runs being scored. So anyway, I'll just say that the ERA maybe is my favorite.
So one, it's interesting you bring up BABIP because I think it is a useful tool at times, but I think it illustrates why this question is a great one, Aaron, is that each one of these stats is just, in my opinion, just like one really tiny part of the overall narrative of the player. And when we think of one stat as the end all, it really it does the stat and the player a disservice, right? And so it's about understanding how the stats kind of interweave with one another. I will say BABIP is useful in that, you know, in the Pete Alonso thing, it's that he hits a ton of fly balls. And he's slow. And so if you hit fly balls and you're slow, your BABIP's going to be lower because fly balls make more outs than grounders, right? Or like a Tim Anderson is always has a super high BABIP because he hits so many ground balls and he's fast, at least historically speaking. So it does it for what it does for me is it gives me evidence of a player not having the year that I think they should have had, or that they maybe could have had, or that they're, you know, they were so good that year and that's not actually their true talent. Anyways, my favorite stats pitching wise are, I'd say, whiff rate and Sierra. Whiff rate because it tells me the story of basically swing and miss. Does the pitcher have swing and miss stuff, right? It's a quick way to do it. And then Sierra is, not to get into the you know how the sausage was made with Sierra, but Sierra for me is the best kind of true ERA type stat to use to figure out what a pitcher's true, I guess, performance or talent is. And then offensively, you know me, I got to go with OPS is my number one. I think everything is born out of OPS, and I think that it can get very undervalued at times if we just think about our league or most leagues. If you were to pick one stat that could help you win, that's the stat that I would start with. And so the stat that I think I look to first, and it's the stat that I have the most minimums for per position for. Then a couple of others shout out, like I like WRC plus as a really quick way to understand offensive, overall offensive performance. And then I don't like barrel rate and hard hit rate. I think I care not less, but I think I focus less on exit velocity than both Aaron and Matt. And I think that barrels is such a specific calculation, and it doesn't, just because you barrel a ball doesn't mean you hit a homer, and just because you don't barrel a ball means that you don't hit a homer, right? And so what does it actually tell me? It's not that it's not useful, I just don't use it. And then hard hit is, it's every ball above 95 miles an hour, correct? That you hit, is my understanding. And so it says that you hit the ball hard, but it still doesn't talk about where you hit it. Can you control where you hit it? Did you hit it in the air or on the ground? It just means that you can swing hard and hit the ball hard. And to me, that can also be important at times, but it's not one that I tend to prioritize both of those pretty low compared to most other fantasy players, I think.
Wait, real quick on that, Matt. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to clarify, so on the 90th percentile, so you chart out all the hits that the hitter has besides bunts, and let's say there's 100 hits. So the 90th percentile is the one you take at 90 or 91. How, you know, so if you chart out all those hits, which one is the 10th hardest hit ball?
So if somebody hit the ball, had, let's say, 300 batted ball events, and the 90th percentile was, give us a number that you look for, a number that you think is a positive 90th percentile number, just to give us some reference.
For prospects, I think a good cutoff is like 104, 105, in that area as far as looking for elites. And I think that's just a tad above league average. But for prospects, you want to see that. So that means that they hit, you know, so Carroll, I think, was 106 was his 90th. You showed me that the other day. So that means that he had 9 others that were, or 10 others that were harder hit than that. But that just kind of lays it out across the spectrum of all their hit events. So where that balances out, why I like looking at both max, which I think is good, and 90th percentile, is it kind of is a control on, was this guy just swinging out of his shoes and got lucky, and is the rest of his hits just
Right.
just
Or does he hit, I guess the layman's way of putting it is, does he hit the ball hard often?
Yeah.
Right? Or does he just hit the ball hard once in a while?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So, quick question on this, just to kind of wrap up the stat thing. Does anyone here think that that stats, new stats, are going to die? They seem to be born pretty easily, but are any of them going to go the way of the game-winning RBI?
I don't know. I would say that I think we'll see stats come and go for sure. I think that there are stats that we prioritize, like launch angles, not as much of a conversation piece anymore, because how you calculate that overall launch angle is, you know, you could have two very big extremes, ground balls and pop-ups, and land at what was considered previously to be the optimal 15 degrees, right? Or you could hit it 15 degrees every time and still be hitting a bunch of line drives, because most home runs are higher than that. It's just, I think that there will poke holes at stats at times. Like CSW is not a stat that I care about all that much, right? Unless you're Greg Maddux and you can make every strike look like a ball and every ball look like a strike. So yeah, I think there's some stats will come and go, but I think it's like it's like acquiring vocabulary as you get older. The more, I think we are all acquiring more vocabulary, and so we're becoming more articulate with regards to baseball because we're learning more words. And so some words go away because you don't need them anymore, right? I think that's how we'll see stats go away, but I don't see a ton of them going away necessarily.
I think the
especially-
next wave is like more limb tracking, bat path, and I know you just said you think extension is bunk, so you probably don't want to hear this, but looking at like arm angles and extension for pitchers, and then bat path tracking and things like that for hitters is kind of the next thing to come. And I think some of the velocity and movement things maybe will fall away, and some of those things may come online, but I don't have any predictions of which ones per se.
No, they're tracking bat speed already in some circles. I know that, which is an interesting one as well. Matt, what were you going to add?
I was just saying a lot of it goes along with technology. As technology gets better, we're able to these advanced stats, and I think these advanced stats are very helpful. More of the metric oriented ones, especially with minors, right? There's a reason why we still don't have much access to prospects, because I think the teams don't want us to know necessarily.
Yeah, it's proprietary that they don't want us to know, and they don't want other teams to know either.
Yeah, well, that's the big one. They could care less fans, right? It's the other teams. But that being said, I think this stuff has made it a lot easier for both teams and fans to identify who the next upcoming players are. Because if I look back at when I really started to look at prospects in 2021, I was really looking at some crappy ones that I think I would have been able to identify. You know, the Evan Whites, right? He had great EV, but great athlete, but nothing beyond that, right? As far as his swing and miss goes, and some of the other stuff, his bat path and so forth. So anyway, yeah, I see it evolving with less of the counting stats and what Aaron said, more of the tech-based stats, metrics.
Matt, why don't you go ahead and ask the next question?
Yeah, I think Aaron suggested this one too, but I liked it because it's what's going on right now. I think we all are getting more and more excited when baseball starts. So we're all watching spring training a lot more. So my question is, how do each of you look at spring training in regard to thinking about your keepers or thinking about your draft? How do you look at spring training stats? How do you scout players in spring training and so forth?
Aaron, you want to start?
Sure. I think my general approach is to ignore the results as much as possible. The only things I really look at are trends in playing time, positional placement, and unless it's the new player. For like example, yesterday I was really disappointed that Shoto's start did not happen at a stadium where they shared the StatCast data, because I wanted to see the the movement and things on his pitches. So that's a unique situation though. I don't do that normally. That's a player who's coming stateside for the first time, so I was trying to get more information to try to make an informed decision. Yeah, for me, it's trying to ignore the results as much as possible, just looking at playing time trends, usage trends, innings pitched, plate appearances, positional appearances. Where's the guy? Does it look like he's going to have a home position, or is he being moved around every to a different spot every game? Those kinds of things. Trying to read the tea leaves of, are they going to break camp or what the role might be? But I try to ignore the results as much as possible. That's my general approach.
How about you, Doug?
I try to get as much information as I can on this, but and so I use it as a surrogate for the regular season. So I look at the lineups, I get excited. But now that the question is asked, I think this is the first time that I've actually been a little bit introspective on the whole thing, and I kind of realized that I've been using spring training for just my own purposes entirely. Like if someone's doing really good, I look at that as pretty pretentious, and I see that that's going to be the future of this guy's year. And if he doesn't do good, like Hunter Green, I got him on my team now, and he's walked 4 guys in 4 innings, and I say, oh, he's working on something. He's working on something. So I manipulate every piece of information that comes in from spring training in order to make myself feel better about what I want to see in the regular season. So I just realized that right now. So I appreciate the opportunity to self-analyze and kind of talk about this stuff together with you guys in a safe space.
It's a safe place. So for me, it's I bet you I'd probably pay attention less than I know for sure than Matt and potentially Aaron. I don't know. For me, it's a warm up. And I think that so much of, at least with regards to major leaguers, so much is the work has already been done. And so the couple things I look at batting order for sure. When a team is rolling out what's considered their number 1 squad, right? Where are the players that I'm scouting or players on my team, where are they hitting? And is it confirmed in roster resource or not? I definitely scroll through Savant after games are over to see if the game was a StatCast game, and if I can look for any anomalies amongst pitchers, mostly for health or if they added new pitches, that sort of thing. But the big thing, if I'm being honest, is it's prospects, right? It's still me 20 years ago, which is, yeah, I've seen, most of the major leaguers already. I want to see Harry Ford, or I want to see Junior Caminero, or I want to see the new young gun. That's the guy I want to see, right? I want to see Noelvi Marte swing the bat over and over again. So for me, it's prospects. And then with regards to so that's the kid in me. And then with regards to fantasy with the prospects, are they, I think of this more in terms of basketball or football, but are they playing with the first team or the second team, right? So as an example, Jackson Merrill started with the first team, and he's playing left field with the first team, and he's hitting 6th. Jackson Merrill probably has a job, right? When you see that day 1 of spring training. Whereas the Mariners have these huge waves of prospects that are coming in the 4th, 5th, 6th inning. That says to me that that's the next wave of prospects to come up, or those are the guys that they prioritize, but they're not going to be contributors this year. So for me, it's mostly, I think I look less at results, and I'm just looking at, where are you hitting the batting order? All the young guys, and for pitchers, did you add a new pitch? And to your point, Aaron, if Bryce Miller added a splitter, I want to know every metric on the splitter. I'm craving or fiending for that information. And so that's where I go. But I don't necessarily find myself sitting and watching a full game during spring training. I think in large part just because there's other stuff that needs to get done. And I know once the season starts, I'm going to be so invested, and I'm trying to hold off that time investment with regards to how it impacts the others around me more so than me. I also have tons of I don't use the word jealousy often, but jealousy of folks who are at spring training. And so it's also hard for me to see those folks sitting in the stands.
It was really nostalgic to see those pictures that Steve posted um, to the group, because it was just so like, having been there last year, like the way the sky looked and like the stadium, like it was just very, took me back very quickly to what it was like to be there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Likewise.
Especially in rainy, cold Seattle.
Right?
Possible.
How
But
about
yeah,
you? How
I
do
think
you- Go ahead.
I think yeah, because really this is pop-up season when it comes to players if you just look at the stats, right? So like I Akil Badu, 2021, young guy, Rule 5 draftee, working hard for the team. 5 home runs, 11 RBIs, 10 walks, 14 Ks, 4 steals, 325, 460 on base percentage, 750 slug, right? In spring. And everybody was talking about him, but obviously it didn't necessarily work out to that extent, right? He's probably a OF4 now for Detroit. But yeah, so I think I think you need to look more carefully. What I've been doing a lot this year is, number one, complaining about StatCast, wishing it was across the board, right? So we could
So
actually
ridiculous.
there. And then secondly, another complaint is MLB needs to show all the spring games so we could actually see these guys. But third, I do like looking at bats. Especially with a young guy. If a young guy is going to go in and strike out on 3 pitches versus 7 pitches, that says a lot to me, right? So I like seeing players hit work the counts like a James Wood, right? He's walking like crazy. I think he's only struck out maybe 3 times, and has more walks than Ks. But even in those, a couple of those strikeout ones, those were counts that he worked, right? So there's a big difference between Dylan Cruz, same thing. He K'd on a 3-2. Big difference between him going up and just swinging at everything. So I think that's very key for me, is actually just watching this.
Doug, what's your question?
Oh, my question.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a little bit. I was looking at MVP picks. I was looking at Cy Young picks. I was looking at Rookie of the Year picks, and I think that we all get along. I think that we're all friends here, and so I don't need to impress anyone on this. But Tino, a lot of my MVP and Cy Young picks were coming up with your players, and a lot of Matt's players and a lot of Aaron's players in particular. And I went, oh man, I can't pick these guys because they're on the podcast with me, and I was wondering on this where because I don't, but I was wondering if you guys do. Do you go after specific players in fantasy baseball where you just lock on? I want this one guy. I want Yamamoto. I want Langford, and go after them because you think that they're going to be the MVP, the Rookie of the Year, the Cy Young. Because it looks like you do, but for me, like for a while, I had Jazz Chisholm on my team, only because I was talking to someone that had him on his team, and he said, well, what player do you like on my team? And I went, I don't know, Jazz Chisholm, I guess. And he said, okay, well, let's do this. And we worked out a deal, and I ended up with him on my team, not because I was targeting him, but just because I was talking to someone that had him on his team. So I don't think I ever really come up with a player that like I go, oh my God, I need Ellie De La Cruz more than anyone, and I'm going to do anything it takes to get him. Mm-hmm. But I think you guys, that's my guess, is that you target very, very specific players. And so that's my question. Do you target specific players? And what do you do when you can't get them?
Who wants to start? I'm happy to start if you guys don't want to.
Go ahead,
I'm talking to you. Let's do that.
Go. All right, I'll go. Yes, the answer is absolutely, unequivocally yes. I think I probably offered Soul Kitchen maybe 30 different offers for Jordan Walker over the past 2 years. Literally 30 offers. And I would tweak them at times. I don't know if this last offer was the best offer that I offered him, probably was. But yeah, I think 100%. Somebody like Swanson is different. Swanson was more looking at numbers, trying to figure out strategically, numerically what I wanted to do, thinking, one of the big factors was actually I love watching Cubs games. And so I'm happy I'd love to have a Cub, that would be fun. But I would say absolutely. I don't see a single player on my team that I'm keeping that I'm not absolutely passionate about their skill. And I haven't dug into every number that I can possibly find about who that player is. It doesn't mean that it's the best player or the right player for my team. It just means that I like that player and their talent, and I want them to be on my team, right? But yeah, and as far as acquiring a guy, how many times have I asked about Ellie, right? I probably made 20 offers on Ellie De La Cruz. So yeah, I think or Noelvi Marte. I probably made 50 offers on Noelvi Marte, honestly. And I think at times it was like a first, a second, and a third plus like a prospect, and he told me no. But yeah, I think that's how it is. That's how it is for me with each and every spot on the team. And very rarely do I find myself taking on a player that I didn't necessarily go after initially. There are times like the Buxton accepting of the trade where beforehand I said, yes, absolutely. I'll put him in my UT spot. I love it. And then I sat on it for a day and I said, you know what? I don't want Buxton on my team. I need to figure out something else to do. Right. Meaning I'm probably going to cut him, which is why I'm looking for a trade right now for anybody who's listening. How about you guys?
Yeah,
The answer for me is go ahead,
for it.
Matt. Please go ahead. I went first the last few times.
Yeah, I think this comes from podcasting and doing pause and learning from each other. I initially a few years ago I would look for prospects across the board, right? And now I'm just mainly looking for elite prospects and using filters to try to find them. So somebody that maybe I liked a year ago that I thought hit it hard and could work well at second base is now probably just going to be a 15 home run, 280 second baseman, which is Curtis Mead, right? To me, that's not elite, so I'm not going to keep him. Maybe he's a filler, but trying to find that next elite guy is huge, and especially for me at a cheaper price. That's why I like prospects. You could find these elites for cheap. I even think Adley, I paid, I had to wait a year for him in the minors, but a first, second, and third rounder in the next year's draft, right? Right now, that's pretty cheap for him, right? But back then, it may have been expensive, but still, that's cheap for the number one catcher in the league. So I think looking at value, and I think there is kind of the attraction of trying to get that player that you want to be your favorite player, right? So I'm a Nats fan. Dylan Cruz was somebody that I specifically targeted in not only this league, but in the two dynasty leagues I'm in. I position myself in the first year player drafts there to make sure I could get Cruz. So some of it's just fandom too.
And you took Cruz higher than everyone expected you to, and higher than all the FYPD lists actually ranked him. So it was a surprise, but you had targeted that guy. And it wasn't a surprise to me, but you had targeted him. He's your guy, right? He's your player. Like Tamar Johnson, I will say that too. Like, I identify him immediately, stick by him, let everybody trash him, and then celebrate when he hits 2 home runs off of Genesis Cabrera and who was the 90? Oh, Jimmy Garcia. Anyways, go ahead, Alvis.
Yeah, make it 3 in a row. I definitely target specific players, without question. And I think I'm not gonna repeat a lot of what they said. I think it applies to me as well. But like you also said, what happens when you don't get them? I just think it's like anything else. Like I go through the stages of grief. I come to terms like the fact that I don't have Yamamoto. Like it really hurt me for a long time. But I just had to like process through it. Like, how did it happen? Okay, it's not going to happen, and I just have to let go. It's not always easy because I get emotionally attached. And so like I blamed Brandon for a while, and then I had to let that go because I felt like the way he managed his team gave him more roster space, and so I got to go through the whole thing, and it was months before I let go of it, which I think honestly, I don't take a lot of pride in that. I think as I texted you, Doug, unrelated, like I think sometimes my emotions and my up and downs can be my worst enemy. So I'm trying to be more even keel, but yes, absolutely target players. And when I don't get them, it's hard. You know, Brian Moo was another one. I got really smitten with Brian Moo a couple months ago. Just going through my off-season work and the way I look at pitching, and I saw, you know, I just found some things under the hood with Wu, and I really started to buy into him. And I didn't think that not Kirk, who's the new owner's name?
Forrest?
Keith.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Keith.
I didn't think he was going to keep him, and then Tino traded for him, and it's funny because of like the week before um I asked Tino, I was like, hey man, do you think you're gonna be keeping a lot of pitchers? Do you think you're gonna be looking at pitching early on? And because I thought Tino would be the only person that would value Wu the way that I would. So I was fearful of Tino picking ahead of me. Well, Tino, like 3 days later, I kid you not, traded for Wu. And then at the moment that happened, like I was like, well, that's it. I'm not going to get Wu because Tino's going to keep him. Because I know Tino probably sees what I see, and then so he's going to keep him. So you know, so I just had to let that go. And the good thing is I can find new crushes, right? There's always another pitcher.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not hard to find another one to
Right.
fall in love with. So I have a new list of guys, and eagerly waiting Monday to see what the pool looks like and how many of those crushes are going to be in the pool.
Mhm. I would add to that so I think there are various ways of obviously going about acquiring guys. And I think this is really, it actually really does pertain to this moment. I've decided, you know, in a lot of ways, like we all value draft picks differently. We all have different philosophies. I think philosophies have changed about draft picks individually over the years. And for me, it was all about getting exactly the 15 that I wanted and that I identified that I wanted and being 100% comfortable with it. And if it means having to give up draft assets to have the right options to be able to think it through before the keeper date, it was worth it to me, right? Is giving up a second round pick for Buxton and then not knowing what to do with him. But I think that's part of, like Wu as an example. Did I think he was going to keep him? I think he probably was going to. But in my mind, if I want the player, I'm not waiting around for the draft, right? The draft is, how much is the draft going to actually impact? What's the percentage that the 15 guys I get in the draft are going to impact my ability to win a championship, right? We all may set that number at a different place, but for me, it's about your stars, right? And if you don't have the baseline of stars to do it, the draft picks don't matter. So for me, it's how do I get the best 15 moving forward? One other thing I'll add is, to answer your question, Doug, you know, the prime example for me is Julio Rodriguez. I saw Julio Rodriguez as a superstar and picked him up in March of 19. In March of 19, he had not played A-ball yet, right? He had not come stateside yet. And he stayed on my team as a keeper in the minor leagues for 2 years before he actually became a part of my fantasy team. And so I think that identifying players, wherever the place, the line is you choose to draw as to how far back you're willing to identify them, whether it's 16 or AAA or whatever it might be. I think it's important that you identify those guys and you stick with them and you have the willingness to really believe in their talent. That's the fun part for me. That might be the most fun part about fantasy for me, is saying, tomorrow's my guy. Before tomorrow was even picked in the draft, that's my guy, right? Black Wade Boggs, I'm sold. Like, this is awesome. And, you know, Matt and I talked about it at length on the Monos pod. People hated him. They jumped off his bandwagon so quickly because he wasn't what they thought he was going to be. He hit homers and walked instead of having the 80 grade hit tool. And I just think believing in talent and scouting, watching film, right? That's how you fall in love with those guys. And so it's interesting you asked that question, because in my mind, I think, well, isn't everybody that way? And I don't know that obviously everybody isn't, but that's how I think about it is, well, why wouldn't you be that way? That's the fun part, is digging and digging and digging and trying to pick holes. And should I really love this guy? And then but evidently, I guess I'm learning that not everyone functions in that way.
Well, I'll counter everyone's take on this. That and Tino, you were saying that your 15 guys, your 15 keepers going into the new season are your 15 guys. Those are your like hand-picked guys. Well, I've had 15 keepers where I said these are my 15 guys like more than 15 times.
Right.
And I'll just say it because he's here right now. But Matt, if you were sexually attracted to me and you had a driving desire to sleep with me and make me leave my wife, I think your ability to change my keepers this year leads me to think that if you wanted to do that, you would have a more than zero chance of accomplishing that goal, just because I said, these are my 15 keepers. And Matt said, how about this guy? I go, yep, I'll get rid of one and I'll add this other one. So yeah, I'm in constant.
Yeah, but tickets to California right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Great question.
Yeah.
I appreciate that question a lot. So my question is for you guys, and I think I've asked it in the past, but I think it's very pertinent. What's your biggest philosophical change overall with fantasy baseball over the last couple of years? I can start. It's a bigger question, so I guess I can start if you want me to. I think for me, it's plate appearances and innings. And, I would always hear people say that, plate appearances matter and innings matter. And I was always more, to use your phrase, attracted to rate stats, right? And rate stats were more fun. It was more interesting to me. I remember one year, Brandon did really well in one of our roto leagues with just like 3 starters and a bunch of relievers because his rate stats were so great. But I think as I progress, I think that just plate appearances matter so freaking much. And if you can lock away 600 plate appearances at most every position on your offense, it's a big deal, right? As is, pitching wise, innings matter to me. And so in the past, I would want 3 Kyle Harrisons and, 3 Luis Castillos. And now I want 5 Luis Castillos and 1 Kyle Harrison. And even the 1 Kyle Harrison makes me nervous. That might just be age too, but that's kind of where I've landed. And it's a big shift from wanting the young exciting player and the rate stat type player. How about you guys?
Well, wait, I'll just real quick touch on that, just because I felt that the league itself, or maybe not the entire league, but in our particular fantasy baseball league, I felt that there was for a while, like me and a few other people were like Billy Bean, like playing Moneyball for a while on innings pitched, where people wanted their select starters, and they didn't even want to like delve into like the waiver wire on that to get more innings pitched on that. And then each week on the head-to-head matchups, they would just get blown away on wins. Maybe they'd lose, you'd lose on losses, but you'd kill them on strikeouts and maybe get lucky on WHIP and ERA on that. And it just seemed like we had a cheat code on the league on innings pitched, and it feels like that league wide people have been catching up to that. I think that at bats kind of go into that, but I definitely feel that volume of innings pitched has been something that league wide we've caught up with.
Aaron or Matt?
Go ahead, Aaron.
This is a tough question. The one that came to mind first, I'll just go with that. And it's probably the first instincts, right? Is just, and I think we talked about this at some point in the past. I think it was all 4 of us, but just being a little more balanced with not going always after the high volatile swing and miss pitchers. I think pitching and its role in fantasy baseball is my favorite element. And I also feel like it's probably one of my strengths, but I just think the shape of that is, and philosophically, has changed a little bit. And just trying to round out my round out my evaluation beyond just their ability to strike people out. So yeah, I think that's been my biggest shift, but I might have a better answer if I had more time to think about it, but that's the one that came to mind first.
Mhm. That's fair. Matt?
Yeah, so a couple things. The first is depth.
Hmm.
I think injuries happen, and I think this is related to looking at players' health. I always used to skip that part in baseball guides about all the health ratings and stuff. I think that's important, but I think also depth is important too. But depth of elite. So I used to think it was ridiculous that Balls Deep would have two shortstops, or he carried three last year, right? But but for me, you want that depth in for your future. So for me, I like the balance of trying to find not just one star at a position, but continuing to weed through. And of course, it evolves. Somebody's not going to. A lot of prospects aren't going to turn out to stars, but you should. I think you should always have a sense of who's going to be next, even if it's a Caminero at third base. He's 20 years old, but you know who's coming up after him. And I think all of that is very important. And then once those players start to graduate, then you have depth in that position, and it helps you versus because shit happens in baseball, no matter how in shape or healthy a player is. And then the second thing that was a complete shift for me, and I did this last year. I used to be a saves guy and really want that closer, and I would keep closers every year. Um, but our league is a saves hold league, and I think even if you don't have a closer at the start of the year, number one, with the volatility of closers, you probably could get one by the end, one or two, three, and trade for them as well. But also, if you have five holes guys that are top notch, you're gonna at least tie your opponent that has the saves, because you're gonna win holes, because the those who hoard the saves guys, they're gonna have two or three positions reserved for those saves guys. Then you can just go across the board with a five holes guy and say, okay, I'll give you saves, but you're gonna give me holes. So I think I'm really not big on investing in closers anymore, unless I could trade the closers and pretend that I really do like closers, and trade them to somebody who's interested.
You just gave it up, man. You can't do that trick anymore.
Matt, I will say what I find interesting about your philosophy with having depth is it has to come at a cost. And I think our two teams are so extreme with regards to how we're valuing pitching going into the keeper deadline. And so the cost for you in having two elite guys at a position is that you're not keeping pitchers. And I know how you feel about that. We've talked about this, but I think it's interesting that these are two like kind of almost polar opposite philosophies in some ways. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think the argument could be made that Kyle Harrison could be nothing, and one of Wu and Miller could be good, and one of Wu and Miller couldn't. And then maybe Castillo blows his arm out, right? And or Snell is inconsistent. Then that's like three or four of my keepers are now worth nothing, right? And but I find it very interesting that we talk so much, you and I, and yet our philosophies with regards to how we shape our keepers is so almost diametrically opposed, right? So unless you guys have anything else with regards to the questions, we can roll into the awards.
Let's do it.
Cool. AL MVP. Doug, why don't you start us off? Who is your pick for AL MVP?
Yeah, I was kind of alluding to this earlier when I was looking at all the names, and I kept on coming up with players on the three of the other people here on this podcast. And I got to say it, I think that with the slow starts that Julio Rodriguez had the past 2 years on this, and I think that with what is this? This is the third year. Is it not? You would know, Tino. This is the third year. He's had that slow start. He's had the elite close the past 2 years. Third year, I think that maybe the slow start could be limited to maybe 2 weeks on this, and then he dominates. I also think that with the philosophy that the Mariners have right now, with kind of like trying to cut down on strikeouts as a team, and just that pitching staff that they've assembled right now, I think that they're going to surprise a lot of people, AL West, AL in general, on this. And so I think that Julio Rodriguez is gonna finally ascend.
Cool. So J-Rod, you pick for him AL MVP.
Yep.
I have to say I like it. Aaron.
I think Judge wins his second.
You think he's gonna stay healthy?
I do.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do. I think, unfortunately, for the majority of us that don't necessarily like the pinstripes, I think they're in for a pretty strong year.
He-
And
He hits the ball hard
yeah.
for sure.
He
Um,
does indeed.
So I don't believe in Judge's health necessarily, but obviously he has the skill. But I will stay on the same team. I think Juan Soto wins it. I think between what's on the line with him financially and his desire to play in New York and that short porch in right field that we all know about, and he's just one that seems like he has the DNA to step up in every big situation. And there's no bigger situation than playing, in the Bronx, right? So I actually did some rough stats for each one of the guys that I had top three. And for me, Soto, like realistically, it's 280, 420, 600 slug with like 120 runs, hitting in the middle of that lineup, 40 homers and 110 RBIs. And to me, it's crazy to say, but that's what I see from him. And then I do have J-Rod second, and I have Bobby Witt Jr. third, in my AL MVP. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, so I'm with you. I have Soto as one. He's again, the short porch, contract year, a lot to prove. He's going to get the press. In fact, I've asked my father-in-law, who goes to Vegas a lot, to bet on Soto. He's number 2 here. Judge is number 1 on Vegas odds.
What odds did you get on Soto?
Plus 600,
Nice.
and then Judge is 650.
Bet $10 to win 660 or what?
I will mention, so they have 20 listed here, I believe. Number 20 is Byron Buxton, right next to Lewis Roberts. So Royce Lewis.
You should keep him. You should keep him.
One of Aaron's players. Julio's there, and then Jordan is number 5 on odds. So we have it covered. Witt is number 7.
Nice.
Trout, interestingly, is 8, but maybe that's because LA is close to Vegas. I don't know. But
That's funny. All right, so we had 2 votes for Soto, 1 vote for Judge, 1 vote for J-Rod, correct?
Correct.
Nice. NL MVP. Why don't we stay with you, Matt?
all right, so this is my bias of one of my favorite players that unfortunately had to trade this year, but I think he's going to be comeback player in the sense of MVP is going to be Bryce Harper. He's going to lead Philadelphia to the playoffs this year. He's going to play every day. First base is going to take a lot of pressure off him as far as playing in the outfield. I just see him 300, 35 home runs, runs and RBIs, and also a first place team.
Doug, NL MVP.
Yeah, no, that was my pick too. I think that if we're gonna be in our 70s and we're gonna go to sports bars, and we're gonna see a Bryce Harper uniform framed up on the wall, and we're gonna go, oh wow, and our kids and grandkids are gonna say, did you ever see Bryce Harper? You're old enough to see him, right? You go, oh yeah, I got to see him. I think that's who that guy is, and yeah, the comeback from the Tommy John last year, he's just proven that he's kind of a little bit superhuman on that. So yeah, that sounds like the correct narrative going into 2024.
Right on. How about you, Aaron?
I was also going to say Harper, but in the interest of not having repeats, I'm going to say same team as last year, but different player, Matt Olson.
Okay.
Will win.
I did not have Harper in my top three.
Oh, you screwed up, man.
Time out here. Just going back to Vegas.
Yeah.
Olsen has the same odds as Harper. So.
Nice.
Good call,
I
Aaron.
I did not. This is not a homer pick. I did pick Acuna, and I know he's hurt, but I just think I think he's just far and above from a talent standpoint, in my opinion. He's far and away above the field at this point in time. I think he proved it last year. I have Tatis second. I thought that's who you were going to say, Matt. I think Tatis is in for a big year. A little bit less pressure. Another, he got kind of worked out some of the physical stuff, and now he kind of gets to settle in. I think he's 40 homers and 35 steals with 100+ runs and RBIs. And then I have Ohtani third, and I think Ohtani might put up the most impressive offensive season of the three that I mentioned, and in the National League. But I do think he gets devalued slightly in the MVP voting because of the DH only. If he does, it's been rumored that he might play a little bit of first or outfield towards the end of the season. And if he did, I think that would boost his odds of winning the MVP. But I think those three players are all going to be really close statistically this season. I did have Olsen.
It's interesting that you mentioned that about Ohtani, because that was why I went with Judge over Soto. I consider Soto strongly as well, but I feel like Judge is going to play center field, and Soto is such a middling fielder, and I just thought Judge would end up edging his teammate there. But yeah,
I would counter with, just because they put you in center field doesn't mean you're playing center field. I don't know that he's very good defensively. I also think we'll see Grisham there a lot because of his defense. I think they'll fall in love with Grisham's defense in center, and we see Verdugo maybe not play nearly as much as we thought. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, though.
That would be a big loss.
Depends on how you value defense, right?
No, I'm just saying, like, not seeing Verdugo play. I was just cracking on Verdugo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right. I like Verdugo. I don't like him as much now that he's clean shaven, but I like Verdugo. Next, so we are done with, so it's 3 votes, technically speaking, 3 votes for Harper, 1 vote for Acuna.
I mean, my official vote was for Olsen, but
okay. AL Cy Young. I will start. Begrudgingly, my vote for AL Cy Young, or who I think will win the AL Cy Young, is Garrett Cole. I think Garrett Cole is not underrated, but he had a phenomenal season last season, and people talked about him as if he struggled, or as if he was not vintage Cole for quite a while. I just think he's such a solid, consistent pitcher. And I do have Burns at 2. And then I actually put George Kirby as my number 3. I think Kirby is on the ascent, and he's a brilliant pitcher. But I think Cole is the best pitcher in the American League still. Aaron, you want to go next?
Sure. My pick is Pablo Lopez. I think the Twins are going to beat up on the Central, and he's going to win over 20 games. And I think that his ratios will be quite shiny as well. And wins seem to matter for that position. Otherwise, Logan Webb would have won last year. But yeah, I'm going to go with Lopez in the AL.
Cool. Matt.
All right. I had your number 2 as my number 1. To me, it's the ultimate vengeance of Aaron on Tino, because Tino traded Corbin Burns for YY. And so Burns is going to win the Cy Young. I think he's easily going to get over 20 games. I think Baltimore is going to dominate the AL, and I think seeing him on maybe not like an average to a little above average team in Milwaukee to a great team in Baltimore with a left field that is pretty far back, I think he is going to do quite well there. The only thing that may be a drawback is seeing how their defense is set up, especially with the infield. I know their outfield will be fast and top notch, and their catcher as well. But I just want to see how their infield plays
I don't know
out.
about their catcher, but yeah.
So yeah, so Corbin Burns is going to win it, and I will wager my dark horse. This may seem weird for the AL Central is Kansas City. So I'll say that right now. I would put money on that for just a small little bill just to get a lot of money back. But I think they have three. They have a great pitcher because I'm totally biased, and Cole Reagans. He's actually number 8 on the odds here. But you have the stability of a Waka after him. And the AL Central is just crap right now. So I think it's a crap shoot as far as that goes. I'm not completely confident in Minnesota's health and they do have the pitching depth, but as far as their hitting goes, I'm not, that's a crap shoot as well. If Buxton and Lewis stay healthy, they're obviously going to win with that pitching staff, but who knows?
Doug, AL Cy Young.
AL Cy Young. So this goes when I was like looking into this and trying to come up with a narrative of what is going to happen in my own mind. Because obviously you're talking about Cy Young, you're talking about MVP. These are all like elite players here, so you can't really go with stats. You got to go with kind of what you see the storyline as playing out on this. And again, I said earlier that I think that the Mariners have a good storyline. They have a good philosophy going on here. And then also with the new rules, with the clock, with the bigger bags, with the shift going away. Obviously, it would appear that having control pitchers would be the best way to go about doing things. And then I realized that all the pitchers that I'm keeping in the keeper league are basically non-control pitchers, heavy strikeout pitchers. And I go, man, why don't I like dictate who I want like everyone else? And so I kind of got into this whole downward spiral. I went to a bar. I looked at uniforms on the wall that they had there, and Willie Mays, Will Clark. It was a Northern California bar. Anyway, I'm going with George Kirby as the AL Cy Young, just with the control, and I think that they're going to be kind of like the team that people like to celebrate come award season on this because they surprised people, and he's the guy that wins 21 games for the Mariners this year.
Well, I hope your pick so far, Doug, come true. That would be that would work for me.
This is all for you.
Shit. Aaron, NL Cy Young, why don't you kick us off?
I think Logan Webb wins it this time. As I kind of intimated earlier, I thought he was very deserving last year, and I think he wins it this time around.
Logan.
I know the Giants are very the right word, split decision or divisive. There's the word I was looking for. Team on our group thread, but I like what they're doing, and I think they're gonna to exceed, and I think he's gonna do better in the win column, and yeah, I think he gets it this time. Fan of him.
Me too. Doug, NL Cy Young.
I had Logan Webb as well, to kind of the theme of the control pitcher dominating this year. But like Aaron, I'm gonna put that away because it's already been picked. And based on the spring training 2 innings that I saw of Yamamoto, my God, man, that guy was just dealing. And then he's on the Dodgers. He's gonna win. Well, if he pitches every 6th day, maybe he wins 18 games, but the Dodgers win. Oh my God, they're going to win 109 games in 2024. So they got to have someone from the team win a big award. So yeah, probably that's my second choice, Yamamoto, on that. But I was with you, Aaron, originally with Logan Webb.
Oh.
I have a dumb question. Can like international signees like that, are they considered rookies? Like would he be eligible for Rookie of the Year? Is that a thing?
He seems to be. Yeah, he's on the list, right?
They are.
I don't know.
I think voters, so like Ichiro won, right? But I think that voters have moved away from, I think some voters have moved away from considering them as strong. And so I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what happens because technically they are rookies, but I do know that there's some voters that kind of frown upon that a little bit. Matt.
I'm gonna go with Vegas odds here, Spencer Strider. By far the odds-on favorite. Um, a lot of this is set out of regret because I once rostered him. And I didn't look at his legs close enough, so
Yeah.
I needed more of Jastra's help at looking at physiognomy and looking at his legs, because even though he's smaller stature wise for a pitcher, he's got those legs that drive him and make his arm less less vulnerable to injury. Yeah, so he's on the best or second best team in the NL. I know we have a Dodger fan here, but again, I'm looking for Cy Young players that are going to win 20 and lead their teams. I'm not sure I'm into, unless you are Felix Hernandez. I'm into pitchers that are on kind of mid-range teams. I want the Cy Young to be like the MVP that leads his team to the level into next level into the playoffs.
By the way, Matt, real quick, Spencer Strider's OnlyFans account really showcases legs. $6 a month. It's a steal. Just wanted to add that.
So Matt, you're saying you're old, is what you're saying with regards to needing the player to be in contention with the team. So I don't have Strider in my top three. I think part of it is I question his health. I still question his health. I know he's pitched the last couple of years. I just watched it with someone like Matt Brash, where there's so much torque on, with the electricity of the pitches that they throw, that I wonder whether they can hold up. It makes me nervous, at least, and maybe that's an old school way of thought, and I know he uses his legs so much, but I do worry about his health. I also think when you throw that hard and you add new pitches, especially pitches with spin, I wonder if anyone has studied the impact that that's had on health. Anyways, I don't have Strider in my top three. I have Webb at 3. I have Yamamoto at 2. I actually picked Yuri Perez to be the NL Cy Young, and I think we don't think about him as much because he's in Miami, and there are a lot of things so let me rewind. I love a player like we talked about Gunnar Henderson, Aaron, you and I love a player who is doing stuff wrong still, and you can really pick apart their performance, and yet the results are still dynamite. What that says to me is there's room to grow, right? And I think with Yuri, there's room to become so much better than every other pitcher out there. And he's smart. So I think this is the year Yuri Perez really does blow up. I think they take the training wheels off of him and let him go. I love what I think Yamamoto is going to do, but I think because it's a 6-man rotation, and I think he has tons of wins, I think he has great K rate, all those things. I just don't think he's going to throw as many innings as some others. And then, Webb at 3. I think Webb I agree, Webb was probably deserving last season, but in an era where there's so many strikeouts, so many more strikeouts than innings, I just think there's going to be other candidates. So my
Tino,
yes,
I'm going to offer you Perez for Yamamoto when we're done here.
Okay, go ahead.
Straight up.
Go ahead. Wins is a category.
What's going to happen though?
Wins still is a category in our league, though, right? As our losses. AL Rookie of the Year. Aaron.
Oh boy, my least favorite category. I'm gonna go on the pitching side, and I'm gonna say that Will Warren is gonna win or be up early in the season as the Yankees fifth starter, win double-digit games, and get the New York media behind him and win that award.
Will Warren. So you think he's gonna be the fifth starter?
I think he might, yeah. I think or he'll be up like relatively soon. I think if you keep him in the minors, both Rodon and oh shoot, I can see the guy in my mind. The shorter left-hander who goes from the side.
Cortez.
Thank you. Both of them have to stay healthy, and then Schmidt has to keep both hands on the wheel, and I just don't see all three of those things happening.
Got
And he
it.
seems to be the first one through the door. He's not my favorite prospect. He's another sinker sweeper guy, kind of like Schmidt, but he at least has a four seam. So anyway, I think New York players kind of get the edge for these type of awards, and I think he'll play pitch enough meaningful innings, and I just expect them, unfortunately, to have a big year this year. So I'll go there.
Right on. Doug, why don't you go next?
We're doing AL rookie of the
AL
year.
Rookie of the Year.
All right, I'm going with Evan Carter.
Who's
Because
that?
he still qualifies. Evan Carter
Who's he
of
playing
the
with?
Texas Rangers. I'm looking at rookie of the year which tries to match my own philosophy with rookies going forward. Is that something that we talked about before, which is at bats on
Sure.
this, is that all these other guys, we hope that they start the season. I know that there's new rules put in place for this to happen, but we hope that they start the season. We hope they stick. This guy we know is going to be at the top of the lineup, at least somewhere. He's going to start, and I think with the credit that he accumulated during the postseason last year, that they're not going to send him down with a slump on that. So I think he's going to have the opportunity to do it. And I see maybe 290 average, 15 home runs, 32 stolen bases, and I think that's going to do it for AL Rookie of the Year.
Nice. And you roster Carter, correct?
Oh yes, I do actually. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Okay. Matt.
I got choose a player I roster too. I just think he's a better talent than the two that are ahead of him in Vegas odds. So Vegas has Carter 1, by the way, and Colt Keith number 2. Junior Caminero is number 3. He's by far the most talented out of these. I think he's already once he's in, he's already a top 5 third baseman. This is somebody that has the talent with contacts, hard hits, all fields, 75 to 80 raw power, and still only 20 years old. That may be the only problem there, is the Tampa Bay problem. But as far as playing the odds based upon player talent, I don't think the others compare.
I too have Junior Caminero as my AL Rookie of the Year. I do think Wyatt Langford and Jackson Holiday are going to be close. I expect Holiday to break camp as the second baseman in Baltimore, and Langford has tremendous power. But Matt, I agree. I just Caminero reminds me not physically and not even with his swing, but he reminds me of Gary Sheffield in that he swings the bat so hard and is able to make hard contact with such a huge swing, right? And it's consistent. There are very few players who have that skill or who've had that skill over my history of watching baseball. I agree. I think I have him in my top 10 for fantasy third baseman this year for redraft. And I think that if he gets 500 plate appearances, I think I have him down for 30 home runs. If he gets 500 plate appearances, I think he's that good. So Caminero, Langford, Holiday, and I should say with Evan Carter, because he is so popular and he is so out there right now. He hasn't demonstrated the ability to hit lefties, and I don't think he has the explosiveness in his bat. I think he's a good player, right? And I think he's a value to the Rangers, but I don't think he's an elite or a superstar in even the way Wyatt Langford is, and certainly Junior Caminero.
I have a comment for Doug on this because, again, look at physical players and their characteristics. I actually did. I saw at the end of winter that Carter was going to sign at a card show, and I tried to get pictures to see if he put on any weight. Pretty slender, and I guess he did. You couldn't really. I couldn't find any pictures. But he came to camp, I think, in the 190s, and he was in the 180s last year.
That's scouting right there.
Yeah, and then real quick, just I mean, a little insight. I know that Tino, you gave a little insight on how you do things and what your plans are going forward. I think Evan Carter, I was looking into him a little bit. I traded Dustin May right before or during spring training last year when he posted a Instagram photo of him like killing some elk and doing a little pose with it. Not that I'm opposed to hunting, but the Instagram posing with the animals did it for me. And Providence kind of shined on me with giving him the Tommy John last year. But I guess Evan Carter is a evangelical Christian. So just so you guys know, in case no one else watches this except us, Evan Carter, at least in our league, is going to get traded
on the block
by May.
Shit was coming.
So just a little insight.
I wish we didn't have two more awards to do, because that's a mic drop moment right there.
You're the one that sent that meme on Kellenick moving to Atlanta.
That's freaking hilarious.
A lefty Seattle took a picture of a house in Atlanta and said it was Kellenick's house. I think I'll post it to all there, but it's pretty bad.
National League Rookie of the Year. Doug, after that, why don't you get us started with NL Rookie of the Year?
Okay, NL Rookie of the Year. When you look at it, I think that it's pretty obvious. Giants, Pac Bell Park, a pitcher on this, and then Kyle Harrison. I think is going to pitch enough innings this year to make that pretty obvious. I don't see a lot of strong candidates in the NL, and so I think Harrison brings it home as a Giants starting pitcher. I know that's three. I had three picks that were all Tino's. That's why I asked the question earlier. Are you guys targeting specific players? Because again, I don't. You guys, I think a little bit. I hate to say it, a little bit selfish targeting specific players. Give it up, man. Let other people have.
Aaron,
you know?
next.
I'm gonna go with another team. I think it's gonna have a really strong year, and that's the Cardinals. I think Mason wins Rookie of the Year. I think he plays shortstop every day for them, despite the fact that they signed Brandon Crawford. I think that's just depth. I think Wynn's going to run with that job and play every day at shortstop. And he's a tremendous defender. I'll see what he does with the bat, but I think they're gonna reascend the top of the Central. And I expect a big hitting. So welcome to the Cardinals bandwagon there with Jordan Walker. Tino was bumpy last year, but glad to have you.
Right on. I have Wynn on my list. I do not have him in my top three. I think one of the issues is he's probably going to hit ninth. But I do like, you guys know, I like Mason Wynn a lot. I think if I'm thinking with my head, it's Jackson Churio. I think Jackson Churio, we're talking about a guy who has 30-30 potential and hits the ball incredibly hard. I think what I have him down for is 85 runs, 18 homers, and 30 steals next year. But he's my number two. Marco Luciano is three. I think the same argument can be made for Luciano as it is for Wynn, in that he's going to play every day. And Luciano has, 65 grade power. But my pick is predictably Noelvi Marte. I think Marte's bat is going to play in Cincinnati tremendously, and he's just completely underrated, in my opinion, as a talent. I think he can hit 300 this season between his speed and playing in that park and how hard he hits the ball. And I think he's going to hit 25 homers and potentially have 15 steals. So Noelvi Marte is my pick. As I also think he's going to settle in at third base, and there will be no CES type of conversation about who's playing third base in Cincinnati for the next 6 years. It's Noelvi Marte.
I see that Swanson trade as a grooming tactic on your part with Husky. Sorry.
Just trying to open that door a little bit and then sneak in.
I know what you're doing. Man.
Creating build the relationship, right? Matt, who's your pick? And is it Jackson Churio?
Yeah, I need to get. Yeah, so if I were going to put bias aside, I wouldn't necessarily have him. I think his big breakout is the year after next. He's still
Mhm.
young. But I think he's going to have a great year. But I actually chose Marte as well, just because I love the porches in that stadium. I could see him going, 25, 20, 280 and having that solid year across the board. And I see the Reds being very competitive as well. I'm going kind of with the win team context theme here as well. So I have Marte as 1 and Chourio as 2. But if I were to bet in Vegas, it
Mhm.
would be YY for sure. He's even the odds. So odds are plus 180 for YY, and then Churio's at 700 is number 2. So,
Jeez.
so they're
Wow.
getting like from LA making that bet, but yeah. So I think Yamamoto is the bet, but I like Marte.
Mhm. Me too. All right, last question, unless you guys have anything else that you want to ask tonight. Last question is who is, in your opinion, the biggest surprise fantasy star of 2024? Aaron, why don't you start us off?
I didn't miss that on the rundown. You're gonna have to go to someone else.
That's fine. Doug.
Yeah. So on this one, my surprise fantasy player is Francisco Olivares, catcher for the Mets. I was preparing for this, and I got my baseball prospectus with this garbage, so I'm just using it for notes right now. And the one stat on that I did on this one is that right here, he hit 25 home runs last year,
Mm-hmm.
and he's what, 20, 21 years old. My bold prediction for him, 42 home runs in 2024. People are going to go crazy. The catcher position is boring as hell. My God, there needs to be something that happens with the catcher on this. We need to get back to Mike Piazza days, and I think that's the guy that's going to do it. 42 home runs in 24. That's a lock from me.
Nice. I appreciate that.
Can you
MVP
give
is
an
not garbage.
example? Can you give me an example of who would have been this person last year, just to give me some context to the meaning of this question,
Sure. Let me.
or just someone from the recent past?
I don't know. William Contreras might be one. I'm just gonna go
Okay.
by position.
It doesn't have to be catchers, though, Aaron. It doesn't have to be catch. That's confusing right there. That's a confusing
You
example.
could say that the jump that Matt Olson made last year, is that he went from a very, very good first baseman to a superstar.
What about Yelich? Return to relevance.
No. Gunner would be another one. So for the way that I did it was I looked at basically young players who have not peaked yet. Like, who's the young player? So on my list, I have Francisco Alvarez, Tristan Casas, right? I think if Casas' second half is what he does this year, he's a superstar. I certainly have Ellie on the list. Marte, O'Neal Cruz, Volpe, Jordan Walker, right? So these are all like second, third year players, guys who were good, not great, but have the potential to become an absolute superstar, like first round pick, second round pick next year. That's the criteria that I used when looking at this.
Okay.
Or Yelich.
Matt, do you want to go? Yelich does not count.
Yeah, it's gonna seem like I'm promoting trades for you, but I think the player that's gonna go crazy this year is Byron Buxton.
Yes. Keep him.
I think his knees were repaired quite well.
You know that for a fact?
Yeah,
He's
totally.
fixed.
I have inside information. I know a doctor in Minnesota that I called. I found his doctor and I called him. But anyway, after all these years of people hoping in a healthy season from Buxton, I think we're finally going to get it. And my bold prediction here is he's going to go 30-30 this year. He's going to be at the top of that lineup, score a lot of runs, get a lot of RBIs. He's going to be bold enough to steal, He's going to be playing center field. I think his head was a lot of out of the game last year because he is an intense player. He only played DH last year, so I say huge breakout. The only reason I did not keep him and I traded him is because he's too old for me, which is
Matt.
a line that I always
I
say.
know
Leonardo
that.
DiCaprio over here.
What draft pick is Tino going to get for Buxton before the deadline tomorrow?
Yeah, I think you could get that.
I think
Well, no, round four pick.
I think he could recover the two he gave.
I think I've
You know-
already tried, and the answer is I'm not getting a 2.
You aren't getting it too, huh?
I've sent offers. I think Aaron, you got an offer, right, for Buxton? I think I sent 10 offers for Buxton today.
Send one to. Did you send one to Billy Bean? He likes 30-30 players,
I think I did.
and he needs keepers.
So, well, for one, I'm gonna say you probably convinced me to keep him at this point.
30-30, baby.
I think you convinced me to keep Byron Buxton because I'm that impressionable. My guys are so the number one guy for me that is going to be the biggest fantasy star, surprise fantasy star of 24 is Anthony Volpe. I think that Volpe falls into. See, Doug and we talked before this, and I said, I'll say Volpe as the surprise star. If you give me 3 awards, we're good. So Volpe, he's interesting, right? Because he goes 2020 in a season where he barely hits 200 and hits towards the bottom of the lineup for a lot of it. I think he's one of those guys that gives you power speed no matter what else he does. And by all accounts, he's smart and alters his swing and is trying to get better. But 2, the big thing is they said that this offseason he's working on leveling his swing out. So it looked like he was trying to yank everything last season, which got him in a lot of trouble. But he's a better pure hitter than 209. And so if he's trying to hit more line drives and trying to hit the ball hard, I think we see his average go up, and I don't think he loses much home run power because of it. I am worried about his ability to hit the slider, but I think if his swing is on a more level path, he'll be able to get to the slider a lot better than he did last season. So Volpe for me, but like I said earlier, the players that I listed on this list, I think all are going to have big years. And I will say, Aaron, there is a decent part of me that is incredibly fearful of what Elly De La Cruz may do this season. I think out of the players we talked about, I love O'Neal Cruz, and I think he has the same sort of athleticism, right? And I think that Jordan Walker does as well in a little different way. But Elly is just he strikes fear in my heart. And I can't say that I can say that about any of the other guys on this list. Any closing remarks from you guys about keeper?
Well, I'm gonna give an answer, and
That's
I
right.
just
My
want
bad.
to have a little bit of a. I get this is a safe place. So I'm telling this to 3 of you guys, and maybe the 2 guys in our league that will watch this.
Yeah.
I don't like all the O'Neal
Dude.
Cruz Elly comps. Like it just tinges to me of like body type, skin color. Like it makes me uncomfortable, and I don't like it because to me, like other than the fact that they're large human beings, like they're very different players, both from like an energy standpoint, and then I think from a skill standpoint, like even if it's not like a lazy comp just from their appearance, it's like he's not nearly as fast as Elly. Like the really only thing they have in common is they're tall shortstops who hit the ball really hard. But I could put a lot of other players like on that list. So like I just hear it over and over again, and I'm like, would you guys like do like a little work? These guys have some similarities, but they're not carbon copies. I just get so tired of hearing it. Anyway, safe place rant. Let's get that off my chest.
Lazy
not a
Comp,
slant.
by the way. Lazy Comp is a great team name, I think. Lazy Comp.
It's not a slight of O'Neal at all. I'm not saying he's not the player he is or that Elly is. That's not it at all. I just think the comps are not accurate. But anyway, so full circle. Last time we talked, we did over and underrated And then tonight, you talked about, do you target certain players? I'm always uneasy to talk about my players. But I think going back to your point tonight, Doug, and being intentional, there is a reason why we go after the guys that we do. And sometimes that research and that belief is what leads us to make those decisions. But nevertheless, I get uncomfortable. But for me to answer this question it's Royce Lewis. I really believe in my heart that he will be considered a superstar this year. And the way that, his knee surgeries painted him, like, it's easy for people to dismiss him because of that. But as we talked about on our Overrated Underrated show, like, I believe in my heart he's a star. And the best player in baseball right now had the knee reconstruction. And have been watching the Dynasty documentary about the Patriots, and Tom Brady just had his knee surgery and played 14 years on a reconstructed knee, and it was football. So I say those two things not to comp him to those guys, but to say that it's 2022, knee surgeries are successful. It's not a shoulder, it's not an elbow. I believe this year he'll be considered based on, again, thank you for explaining it to me. It helped me a lot.
Mhm.
I think he'll be viewed as a top level pick this time next year. I believe that. I really do. Which is why I did everything I could to go get him, to your point, Doug, earlier. But
Sweet.
that's it.
Anything else?
So the question we asked last time, I ended up trading one of the players that I answered. The question was, who on your team would you not trade? And I think one of them was Hunter Green. I've actually traded him twice since then. But so
Kidding.
who
Matt, I was, when you guys were talking about Caminero, I pulled up one of the things I really love on their fan. Like, I want to say, like, when we moved to Fantrax, I was not a fan, but it is unequivocally the best site that I've ever played fantasy sports on, and just a great site in general. So whoever had the foresight to make that decision, all credit to you guys.
Yeah.
But one of the
Right
things
with
that I
it.
love about
who's
one of
ran-
the things that I love about it is when you click on a player and you go to the transaction history, you can look and see
Yeah, awesome.
the entire history of that player. And
I've
so
done that 100 times. I've done that 100 times in
sometimes,
the past month.
so I had pulled up Caminero when Tino and Matt were talking about him as candidacy for Rookie of the Year, because I was trying to remember the trade that got him on Matt's roster. And I just, Matt makes so many moves, and I find myself being envious sometimes of what he can pull off, because it feels so daunting to me. But I just think there's a lot of courage too. I mean, he gave up Bryce Harper and Alex Bregman in that trade.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's too many people that would have the courage to trade two top 5 players like that
Mhm.
for young guys. So credit to you.
Mhm. I did get Carter back and Vinny back.
Yeah, there were other players in the deal, but yeah, that's a lot of talent to give up.
That was gonna be my answer to my own question. So I traded my freaking favorite player for Caminero. So
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of belief in a player, the Fantrax's first fan was Brandon Young.
Mhm.
Brandon was the one who moved us or suggested the move. So we went from the worst platform of all time in Yahoo to, yeah, I agree. I think Fantrax is really past everyone else.
And it's gotten progressively better as we've been on it too. That's the thing. And so I just appreciate that about them.
And whenever there's an issue, they respond right away.
Yeah.
Respond that day.
Do you guys think there's going to be a bunch of trades before the keeper deadline?
I hope
Oh
so.
boy. It certainly got my attention. I find myself just going on refreshing constantly, and like, it's fun.
I thought Aaron and Tino would go after Cal now that he's on the trade block.
It's appeal to authority a little bit. I love Bo Naylor, and I was on the fence about because keeping catchers has not been kind to me the last 3 or 4 years. But after we talked about him the last time, it's just seeing people I respect speak so highly of him. It just got me out of my own head a little bit. So I'm committed to Bo, and I'm not going to carry two past the deadline. So that's why I'm not going after. Yeah, I did talk to Steve today. Had a good conversation with him. He's a funny guy. He was like, I'm playing. My goal is to win the toilet bowl. I was like, dude, you need to set your sights higher. You have a good roster. And
I did inquire. I did inquire what it would cost, and I think in that moment I was interested. And then he started to haggle a little bit with, and that's so I just kind of dropped the conversation because I wasn't haggling over Cal Raleigh. I'm sorry. He's gonna hit 230 with 30 home runs. We know that for sure. He's gonna have a 776 OPS, and he's gonna score 75 runs and drive in 90, which is a good catcher. But I wasn't haggling over it. The other thing is you trade a pick for Cal Raleigh, you're actually trading your 15th keeper plus the pick. So yeah, at this point in time, it wasn't worth it to me. But to answer your question, absolutely. Like I absolutely inquired the minute I saw it.
Where did Doug go? Did he get another beer?
I think Doug's done. Doug just Irish goodbye. He just bounced.
he's upset. We were talking about a catcher again. He's like, God damn it, catchers.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Hey, so are you gonna suggest what your pick is when keepers are declared tomorrow night? Because you have the first pick of the draft.
Yeah, well, I can't tell you exactly who it is because I don't know exactly who's, people are going to keep and who they're not. But, even if it's not the best player, because I just want to get one of his guys.
So is it Logan Gilbert?
What's that?
Logan Gilbert?
Yeah, Gilbert or Miller, right?
Okay.
Or that Diamondback shortstop.
Oh,
You can't keep them all. The 15 keepers is like a progressive tax, right? That like the richer people have to pay more and the poorer people have to pay less. And so it's a beautiful thing. So I'm looking forward to it.
For anybody in our league who's listening to this podcast, I shouldn't be saying this because it's a competitive advantage. Why the fuck are you not trading for everybody, the top teams, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th best players?
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, where the fuck would Brian Hayes rank on some of these teams? Where would Mason Wynn rank on some of these teams? Like, not to go postal right now, but I don't get it. I don't know why people aren't inquiring on Max Scherzer or Lazaro Montes or, like France is going to be a 125 WRC plus first baseman. He's going to hit 290 with 20 home runs and an 800 OPS, and yet they're not a single fucking bite. They'd rather keep like guys. They'd rather Hurston Waldrop. Did anybody see him pitch? Like, if you're a rebuilding team, a fucking bottom feeder, why aren't you offering a pick for Hurston Waldrop?
Have you offered yourself?
I have him.
No, have you offered them to a team?
I've offered every player on my team to all kinds of people. And then either don't get a response or they're like, no, I don't want him. I'd rather keep Doug Jones instead. Like, I'm serious. It blows my mind though. And I'm saying this the night before keepers because I know they're not going to listen to it beforehand, but it blows my mind.
Yeah. Even if I think like, so Aaron got Ellie from me for a third rounder a long time ago, right? The other Aaron got Tucker from me right before keeper deadline for like a first round pick. I got Witt from Balls Deep from Aaron for a first round pick. So yeah, you should be grabbing these guys. Get the law.
Well, and even if you are not, you don't extend the amount of time, or you don't expend the amount of time scouting and spreadsheets and all the other stuff, right? Admittedly, like we dedicate most of our free time to doing this stuff, and not everyone's expected to do it. But I'd be paying it if I didn't invest that amount of time. I'd be paying attention to the players on the teams of the people who I know do, right?
Yeah.
I may not know who Josue DePaula is, but I'd be trading for him because I know that the dude who loves that kind of stuff likes Josue DePaula. It's not quite as simple as that, but I think you can start to connect the dots, right?
Yeah. That's why I
know.
got I think it was like what, a year and a half ago. That's why I traded for Tristan Casas, because I knew that Matt was focused on prospects.
Yeah.
And he, said he was a good one.
Yep.
And so yeah, I took his word for it. It worked out.
It's just, I don't know.
I'm mad at that. Now I'm mad at the James Wood one too, but I was the one who offered.
Right?
True.
We all three of us owned him over this offseason, which is funny. All right. Rant's over. I think that's enough. Certainly waiting with bated breath for 8:59 or 9 p.m. Pacific tomorrow to see what the draft board looks like. I'm sure we're all going to dedicate a little bit of time building our draft boards in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and I'll just say that as having the first pick of the first round, I will let that be known within the hour after the keepers have been announced.
You don't do anything Matt tells you to do, man. You don't have to do that if you don't want to.
Hey,
How
on
do you
the
know-
way out, we should say, do we think Snell will sign by the time our draft starts, and then where do we think he's going to sign if you think he's going to be signed?
Man, okay. Along those lines, I will say if Snell signs with the Yankees, he's on the block at a cut rate.
I told Doug that. I told Doug that. I did. I said that.
Because
I was like, if he goes,
I can't root for him if he goes to the Yankees. Going to the Angels is, I wouldn't love it, but it would be less painful than the Yankees. As far as the teams that are rumored right now, the Giants would be my number one pick for him for a number of reasons. Defense, park. I think they're going to be a decent team. The Phillies have jumped in if it's a low years, high AAV. I don't love that park, and I certainly don't love that defense, but I know they're going to score runs. So I don't know. At this point, I don't know. It's the other thing with him though, is the park doesn't matter as much because he doesn't very little contact, and the defense doesn't matter as much. So we'll see.
but will he sign by Friday, do you think?
I do.
What's your prediction?
I do. I think all the Boris guys will sign pretty quickly here. I don't see any, not all of them. I guess it's just he and
Montgomery.
I think Montgomery goes to Boston and Snell. I think Snell goes to the Giants, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen. Even if it's a higher AAV, fewer years, that's their MO anyways, right? I think that's where he ends up, even though Farhan Zaidi's been talking as if they're done. What do you think, Aaron?
I don't think he's going to be signed yet. It's gone on so long. I don't know what he's looking for. I think he's going to end up on the Angels. I think the Angels are going to get stupid at the end and give him, a bunch of years and money, and they'll cave.
Huh. We'll see. Matt, do you have an opinion?
I think the Yankees or Giants. I think the Giants are holding the cards too close right now, and I think they're going to reach out and do something. But I think the Yankees, just to piss off Tino and see him go on the trade block. That would be fun. That'd be something, because we're going to be bored between Monday and Friday. So if we get some Snell to Yankees news, then we could kind of have some fun stuff going on in between.
It's going to blow my rookie of the year call there.
Who's going to be bored?
Not that it was going to win anyway. I'm not. I'm going to be building my sheets out. I'm going to have a lot of work to do.
That's what I'm doing. I'm like,
I got work to do.
I'm going to be MIA. You can't find me. I'm going to be buried in here.
Hey Tino, if he does sign with the Yankees, man, I've traded for Snell, I think at least 5 times. So think of me when he's got to move off your squad.
You know who I'm calling if he gets traded to the Yankees.
Exactly. You're calling Steve.
Calling Soul Kitchen, man.
Yeah.
I'm calling Soul Kitchen. Can I ask you guys real quick before we go? Do you have an opinion on the Jordan Walker trade? Honestly. Like, I'm not like, no bullshit. Do you have an opinion on it? Because it was a high price to pay.
I'll tell you this real quick, is that also led me to this question about specifying players that you want. And you said that you like sent like, 24 trade offers for Walker.
I'm more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. I like with that, I just went, well, that's Tino's target. That's who he wanted. And so I usually with me, like when I traded for Hunter Green from Matt, I said, well, the price is right. And if the price was wrong, I wouldn't have even been interested. But it just seemed like you were looking for that line on him. And I'm sure that you just kind of like incrementally was trying to, go for it. And you just went enough on that, probably with Teoscar on that, maybe pushed it over the edge, and you got your guy. So that's what we're here for.
Matt, Aaron, do you have an opinion?
I thought it was great. I like it on both sides, but you got to get your guy, and if you really want your guy, you got to pay up.
Yes.
And so you took a player that you paid up. You didn't try to give like four, players that were kind of in the high 90s in the ranks. You gave, an elite star in Vlad. So in some ways I'm a little disappointed because Soul doesn't necessarily trade that much with me compared to you all. And so I've always wanted Vlad because Vlad was my favorite player with the Expos, and I always wanted Vlad Jr. So I thought he would be easier to get from Tino. But now that he's on Soul, it's probably a cause not worth pursuing. So yeah, I thought it was a good deal on both sides. I like when people put out their top player or one of their top players for a player they believe in.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, do you have a thought?
I think personally, I was happy for you because I know how much you think of Vlad, and I thought if you were willing to move him, that you really wanted Walker. And I think, again, kind of the theme of tonight, I know that feeling of like when you get somebody that you really, really want. But I will say, as a competitor, I was relieved that I didn't have to play against you this year with Freddie and Vlad.
Yeah.
Like that, and not that I'm not predicting anything. Your team is still stacked, and I'm still behind you offensively. But I was like, I felt like I was 3 miles behind you, and I'm only 2 miles behind you.
And I'll give
So I just felt like that was going to be a tremendous advantage for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily feel that way for 2024, but I was also duality. But personally, I was happy for you personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's good for our league as well, because I think Vlad is a little bit underrated right now, and Steve's team is good. He's got Vlad and Judge now. I mean, those are two pillars,
Right.
and so I hope that he can rein in his Yankees. His tendency to just grab all the Yankees and have a bit more balanced team, because I think his team has the makings to be very competitive. So I think for the league, it's healthy as well.
Absolutely.
Those are my thoughts.
Good call.
And I'll do a soapbox here. Steve drafted Walker in the 3rd or 4th round, and everybody was saying, "Who is Jordan Walker?"
Yes. Yeah.
And so the soapbox here is going to what Tino was saying earlier and applying it to the draft. Why the hell are teams that are not doing well taking risks with their draft picks and getting prospects early in the draft, right? And Steve deserves all the credit for having the guts to do that. And what did it give him? It gave him freaking one of the best first basemen in the league by doing that, right? So
Yeah.
so it's worth getting him versus a Waka in the 1st round, right? So yeah.
Question for next podcast is: do low activity managers should they get kicked out, or are they necessary for a good ecosystem in a fantasy league?
I don't know. I would fall on the side of absolutely not kicked out. I think, and it's not for an ecosystem reason. I think it's just, I like the personalities that are in the league, and I think that matters too, right? The chemistry of the league matters. The personalities, the willingness to be open and honest, the willingness to text things like goofy things. It's all a part of it. And to me, as we talk about often, this is not just a fantasy baseball league, right? And so in my opinion, it's all the personalities make up what this is. The other thing is this league is plenty competitive, even if it's only 8 teams, it's still way competitive, right? With some really, really smart people. So no, I think the people matter to me more than anything else. And there's a ton of sadness with Brandon not playing anymore.
Yeah.
He's a great friend, and he's been a great friend for a long time. But I get to meet 2 new people, and I've had a ton of interaction with Keith, and it's been great. And I've really come to enjoy it. And so I think my opinion is no, this is a lot more than a fantasy baseball league for me. I think other leagues, sure. Other leagues, I think that's really, it should be applied, but this is the one league that I play in where I would say absolutely not.
Nice.
And I think the cutoff is, are they setting their lineup daily, and being competitive that way? I think we've lost players, or we've said goodbye to players in the past who haven't done that. But in this year, I listened to a lot of pods just because I have free time this year, and there's a lot of podsters, decent players that I really respect that just don't trade. So trading isn't necessarily, I think, even though I love people who trade, it's not necessarily a strategy everybody employs. Bear's good food in our league. He does quite well. He's won it, 2 or 3 times. He's the only one that has won it back to back, by the way. And we're like a dynasty keeper league, and only one ever to do it. And he maybe does 1 trade a year. So,
I'd say people that don't trade in fantasy baseball is like not taking ecstasy at a rave. It's like you could do it, but like, what's the point?
I think the point is to win. I don't know. The trades themselves don't necessarily give me joy. I think it's or the negotiation necessarily. I think the point is just to make your team, for me at least, is make my team as best I can, and acquire players that I look forward to watching day to day, right? That might be the overriding thing, is to acquire players that I love, that I look forward to watching. And if I'm being honest too, that impacts my keeper decisions, right? It impacts whether I might be keeping a lesser player. Bless you. I might be keeping a lesser player because I don't want to watch that player play, right? My trade of Blake Snell may be stupid, but I'm not trying to watch a Yankees starter at all, ever. I don't know. This is fun, man. You guys, super fun.
Thank you so much, you guys, for making this happen. I know I reached out and suggested these 4-way conversations are just really, I treasure them. And coming up to the keeper deadline, I was off this weekend. It's great to talk to you guys.
They're
absolutely.
If
we'll see a lot after 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Right. We may need to record or Zoom, at minimum Zoom, opening day weekend, if Matt and Balls Deep are here in Walla Walla, and get whoever wants to watch baseball with us online, so we can watch together. Be a lot of fun.
Nice. And then spring training next year, 2025,
yes, sir.
Arizona.
Yes,
Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna try to. I'm considering trying to drive to New York on the 20th. The Rates and Barrels is doing a live event during one of the Soul games, so we're live recording.
Nice.
And it's about a 3-hour drive from where I am. I'm thinking about trying to go.
Nice. That'd be fun.
Yeah, they're gonna have the Soul game on, and Trevor May and and DVR are gonna be there.
Nice.
And maybe Nick Pollock as well.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Thanks again, you guys.
Yeah.
Great week. Happy Keeper Day.
Yep.
It's gonna be a fun one.
Talk soon.
Night, y'all.
Later. All right, guys. Good talking to you.